I am, yes.
Oh, right.
Thank you very much.
And welcome to another edition of the Sky Blues History Podcast with me, Claudio, and of course, the man who knows more about Coventry City than the club archives themselves, Jim Brown. I'm still trying to catch up with him, but at this rate, I'll need another lifetime. Now, tonight, we're joined once again by a very familiar name, former owner and chairman Bryan Richardson. For Bryan's back, of course, for part two, after we couldn't fit it all in part one. And after the reaction of the first episode, well, let's just say it split the fan base right down the middle. So thank you for all your messages and feedback. We do read them all, even the ones that start with, I can't believe you asked him that, or I can't believe he actually said that. But I said, Bryan, didn't I? It split the fan base, and but that's how you like it, isn't it?
Well, it's a long time ago now, so I suppose there's a certain vintage that remember the times better than the current fan base. So maybe they just pick up from what their parents have said or senior members of the family. And, that may have a different view on things.
Of course. Well, tonight we're diving deeper into Bryan's time at the club, the players who arrived and departed, the recruitment, Gordon Strachan's tenure, and of course, the big question, who really carried the can of that relegation in 2001? And while we look back, it's incredible to think that 24 years on, the current Sky Blues are sitting top of the Championship, and dare we say it, on the brink of Premier League return after 25 long seasons. If you're enjoying these episodes, don't forget to like and subscribe and share. It really helps keep the history of this great club alive. So let's get into it. I'm going to start with a massive player that you brought into the club, Bryan, and it was quite a bit of money, almost 2 million, if it wasn't £2 million. That was for Dion Dublin.
It was actually 1.9 million was the actual fee. And I remember going to see Martin Edwards, who was then chairman of Man United. And I think Martin wanted a good bit more. And I said, but I think Dion had only played once for Manchester United, I think, hadn't he? But it was certainly only a handful of games, if many at all. But I think it was just one. Yeah. So anyway, and 30 years ago, or plus 30 years ago, 2.5 million, which is what I think he wanted for a one-game player, was a lot of money then.
Well, it raised a few eyebrows with the fan base, because obviously, me being one of them, thinking, I can't believe we spent that kind of money. But he turned out to be a very special player, didn't he?
He was absolutely tremendous for the club. And he rarely missed a game through injuries. He had one patch, I think, where he missed maybe half a dozen games, and he had one patch where he got sent off twice, I think, and had to miss 6 games then. So I think overall, nobody could argue that he wasn't a great player for Coventry City.
But I suppose the bit that the fans want to really know is, why did he leave? Because listening to Dion, he says that he was never really offered a contract, or it was taken away from him.
That, I promise you, is absolutely not the case. We tried and tried and tried, and Dion, I think, had just played for England in the last season with Coventry. And of course, the value of him went up, and also other clubs started to show a considerable interest in Dion. And the two, if memory serves me, were Blackburn Rovers and Villa. And whatever we had offered, I think it's fair to say that he would have gone to Villa, because I think there was an agreement, call it what you like, but I think there was an agreement for him to go there. Blackburn offered us more money than Villa, but that wasn't going to be the case in terms of selling. We certainly didn't want to lose Dion. That's for sure.
Brian, did they trigger the transfer clause then? The buyout clause?
No, there wasn't a buyout clause. There was a clause in the contract that if anybody offered, I can't remember now, but I think it was probably 6 million, something like that. We had to let Dion know that a club was prepared to pay. It wasn't a buyout clause, it was an agreement to inform the player.
Right.
But it didn't give him the right to just say, right, I'm off. It was, we had the commitment to let Dion know.
So did he refuse to play, is the question? Because that's...
He did at Luton.
Yeah, it was Luton in the League Cup, yeah.
Yes, and it was a very uncharacteristic thing, but on reflection, you can think back and you can say, well, it was right at the point of a decision over his transfer or no transfer. He was still a Coventry City player, and to be fair, he should have played. And I think we had a meeting with, I can't remember who it was with now, maybe the Premier League or certainly one of the bodies controlling football, over whether or not he was in breach of, because he was fit to play, but he just didn't want to play. So that left us, a bit of a sour taste, because it left with not the good feeling that we'd had for, I don't know, how long had Dion been with us? 5, 6 years?
From 94, October 94 to October 98. So 4 years.
4 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I thought, Brian, that there were a couple of times, a couple of seasons where wasn't he reluctant to sign? He held out for a bigger pay rise or something?
Well, that was at the time of the England, just before, it was during a really good run. And we were trying to get him to re-sign, and he succeeded in getting us to give him quite a substantial increase on his money, which was fine, because he was very important to the club. And I think he was the first player that we had that earned over 20,000 a week.
Right.
Which 30 odd years ago was a lot of money.
Yes, it was. It was.
I
do remember that. Yeah, I do remember that game at Luton, and there was quite a toxic atmosphere amongst the Coventry fans, and it was a pretty poor performance.
I can't remember who played up front or whatever, anything, or can you?
No, I can check it out, but probably Whelan and Huckabee. But I do remember Gary McAllister hadn't long been back from injury, because he had that bad injury in the previous season. And he got booed by the Coventry fans, which I thought was very, very unusual.
I
No.
really don't remember
No.
that.
It was a capitulation to a very average Luton
It was a
side.
poor performance by Coventry that night. I remember that well. And I don't know, what round was it in the League Cup?
Probably the third round.
Third or fourth or something. Third, maybe. Yeah. But that was a bad night, yes. But as I say, Dion, I think, had already committed himself, and whatever almost we had offered, Villa were always going to offer him more.
So did you have to deal with Deadly Doug?
No, I didn't have to deal with Deadly Doug because it really didn't come to that, because I think trying to think who it was now. I think it was just done. And it might have been Doug's son who was there. Oh, no, it was probably who was the secretary there then, who'd been there for years. He was Doug's sort of right-hand man, and it was him that I dealt with. But then the following that, of course, we had the George Boateng situation, which was perhaps even more, I don't know what the right word is, troubling, or...
You're saying he was poached?
Sorry?
Was he poached then, Brian? Is that what you're saying?
He was clearly, yes, of course he was. It was no question. And it was so obvious that, what could you do? And George was a smashing guy, George, and he was very religious and so on. And he said that it was his Christian values that determined that his mind was going to, and it was all that. But anyway, that's all sort of. But George was smashing, and when we consider that we paid. Did he come from Feyenoord?
He did, yes.
Yeah. And we paid £212,000 for George, and Ray Clark found him, and he was then playing as a right back for Feyenoord. And Ray Clark said, I think he could really play very well in midfield, and that's where George became a top player. And we sold him to Villa, I can't remember, it was 4.5, 5 million, something like that. Mm-hmm. But again, we didn't want to lose George. He was a top player. But when a player's mind is made up, invariably for him, then it's very difficult to change that opinion. The agent is driving a deal because he wants the deal, because he gets paid a lot of money to close the deal. He doesn't get any money if the player stays where he is. So all these things come into play.
I just while we're talking about Dion, of course, the only way we could buy Dion, because we sold Phil Babb for a massive.
Well, the Phil Babb story was quite good, because Alan Sugar was at Tottenham, and I think Steve Birkinshaw was manager at Tottenham then.
Right.
And Alan Sugar came on to me before Liverpool and said, we want to buy Phil Babb. And I said, oh, okay. And he said, what's the price? And I said, I can't remember now, but like 3.5 million or something like that.
Yeah.
I said, but I tell you what, we would rather do a part of a deal with you. You can have Phil Babb for $2.5 million if you give us Sol Campbell. And Sol Campbell wasn't in the side then, or he was on the edge of the side and of Tottenham side. And Sugar said, well, yeah, I think that's probably a good deal. And so he said, but I'll have to talk to the manager. Anyway, he talked to Steve Birkinshaw and said, you must be mad. Sol Campbell's going to be one of the best players and centre-backs in the country, or is near to it, on the way there now. So that fell through, and then Liverpool came, and I think 3.7.
Yeah, something like that. It was, but it was Phil's value rocketed just on the basis of his World Cup, didn't it?
Correct. He came back. It was in the States, wasn't it? That World Cup. And he came back from there, and he played outstandingly for Ireland. And he was doing well for us. He was a great lad as well. He was quite funny, Phil. He had a good sense of humour, but he was a good footballer. Very good footballer. And he was at Liverpool for quite a long time, I think, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. Not in Liverpool's sort of glory years, but he certainly...
he was always in and around the squad.
Yeah. But I guess that was another Bobby Gould purchase, wasn't it?
It was, and I think where did we get him from? Bristol? No.
Bradford City, I think.
Was it? I remember we paid 500,000 for him.
Right.
Which was, to us then, a lot of money, because it was pre-Sky monies and so on. So it was a big purchase, but he more than proved his worth.
Yeah. Moving on to another interesting transfer, which several people have asked me to ask you about, which is the Chris Marsden episode.
Right.
Chris Marsden was he was a midfield player who came on loan to us. This would be 93-4 season.
He wasn't with us a full season, was he?
No, he came on loan.
He played about 15 games or something, didn't he?
Maybe not even that many, but he played some fantastic games for us, and the fans really wanted him, didn't they?
And we did, but I can't remember where he ended up going. Where did
he ended up at Wolves.
That's right. Yes. Well, we tried, and we would have taken Chris because he was a lovely footballer, left-footed. Sort of, I don't know who you describe him like, but he was a sort of stroller type midfield player. I could say a sort of Liam Brady type of player. I don't know, maybe not as good as that, but that type of player.
Yeah,
he had a bit of style about him, didn't he? He was very stylish on the ball.
Yes, he was the most unassuming lad as well. He was unassuming on the field, and he was unassuming and quiet off it. But obviously, again, something happened, and a deal was struck between him and Wolves, and that was it. And he went actually from under our noses, if you like.
Well, he must have done it. It was a strange one because I do remember a game on Sky against Swindon at Highfield Road, and I think it was possibly he did, looking at his record, he only played 7 games for us.
Oh, was it? It was as few as that, was it?
It was, but he over the Christmas period we won at Wimbledon on Boxing Day, and we won at Tottenham on New Year's Day. And we came back and played Swindon on Sky. We led until about the 95th minute, and they got an equaliser. But Marsden really was outstanding in all 3 games.
Right.
We just
I
thought it was
remember him. I remember him well. I remember his way he played, and yes, absolutely. We wanted to keep him. No mistake there. But sometimes, however the chips fall or whatever, they've got it, and they have the right to, because he wasn't a free agent, was he, or what? What was it?
Well, he wasn't in Huddersfield's first team at the time. They were a third tier side, and he couldn't get in their team for whatever reason.
Oh, right.
So Phil Neal obviously brought him on loan, and then Wolves, they hopped in and signed him. They were a second tier side.
Yes.
Obviously, we were a Premiership side, but he only played 11 games for Wolves.
Did he? So maybe So maybe it wasn't the worst decision we've ever made.
When you look at his career, it was rather strange because he went from Wolves to Notts County, got relegated with them, only played about 10 games for them, then ended up at Stockport in the third division, had a little period at Birmingham, and then 5 years later, almost 6 years later, he ends up at Southampton under Gordon Strachan.
That's right, yeah.
Yes,
and he became a regular at Southampton in the Premiership. Yes. It's a really strange career.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm sure every club has got a few that come in, do well, a few that come in and don't, and you regret some, and you think, thank heavens for others, don't you?
Yeah, I'd imagine Wolves offered him more money, probably, Jim. That's probably what it was.
Yeah, and I remember at the time, Brian, you were trying to pacify the fans about missing out on him, and you came up with this lad from Scotland called Sandy Robertson.
Right.
Do you remember him?
Yes, I do. Little lad.
Yes.
And I'm trying to think who was Phil manager then.
Yes.
Again, the managers find them, or scouts find them, and maybe it was, who was Phil's assistant then?
Would it be Mick Brown? I think it was Mick Brown.
I'm not sure. Who was before Mick Brown? Who was after Mick Brown?
Well,
George.
Big Ron came in to replace Phil.
No, who was the assistant?
Was it Don? Was it Don Howe?
No.
No.
Later than that.
George. He was a Scotsman.
George Mackey.
No. He was very good, and he went to become a manager in Scotland. Oh God!
No, Alex Miller.
Correct, and it was Alex Miller that knew Robertson.
Right, but he really did. He disappeared without trace, didn't he?
He went back up to Dundee.
Scotland. Yeah, I think so. With Stephen Presley. Yeah.
Yes, and we paid 250,000 for Robertson, so it wasn't
no
the end of the world, as it were. But it was Alex Miller that would have brought him to. And the manager at Rangers then was
Walter Smith.
Walter.
Was it Walter Smith?
Yeah, and Walter and Miller were good pals. So.
Right. So what about Isaias? Any information on him?
Oh, Isaiah, yes.
Yes.
Crikey, dug one up there.
It was a big Ron signing, was it?
I think it was, wasn't it? I'm trying to put them into boxes of who got who.
He was a real big Ron type player, wasn't he? Very flamboyant.
Yeah, he was a hell of a player.
Yeah.
But he wasn't right in the mentality stakes, if you like, of really being committed. He was early 30s then, wasn't he?
I think he was, yeah.
Yes.
He did move a bit more than Jose Perdomo, though, didn't he? So
I remember him. Did he score at Chelsea or somewhere?
He scored at Middlesbrough.
He scored at Chelsea too, I think.
Yeah.
And he was quite a character, I must say, but not in the wider context of things. He wasn't that crucial to what was going on at the time or what we were trying to do. It was a short-term Ron thinking, he'd got a hat-trick, I think, at Highbury.
He's playing for Benfica, I think.
Yeah, and I think he got a hat-trick at Highbury for Benfica. And that was the signal that he was available and whatever. And why don't we take a chance, sort of thing.
Yes.
That was it. Who else have you got up your sleeve?
Well, I guess the biggest transfer coup in your time was actually getting Gary McAllister to the club.
Certainly Gary was crucial because he was at the top of his profession at the time. And clearly Gordon knew him and they were great friends. So that was a help.
Brian, there was rumours circulating that we heard before, because we played Leeds on the last game of the season, and I was hearing that he was coming to join us. And of course, that was the game where we could have actually got relegated. And Gary stepped up to take 2 free kicks in that game. We drew 0-0. It's the game where Man City drew with Liverpool and they thought they were winning and they went down instead of us. And it was really odd that he was playing for Leeds in a game that could send us down. And I'm hearing he could be coming to Coventry. So was it talked about before the end of the season then?
I can't remember. I mean, to be honest, that was very much a Gordon. Was Ron manager when Gary came? Or Gordon? I think it must have been Gordon, wasn't it? Oh, Gordon was with us. That's what it was. And Gordon wasn't manager. Ron was manager, but Gordon got him to come when Gordon was coach under Ron. Yeah.
You've muted yourself, Jim.
Sorry?
Jim's muted himself.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, Ron was definitely in charge.
Yes, and Gordon was number 2.
Yeah.
And Gordon got Gary to come. That's absolutely right. Yeah.
He must have been a high earner, wasn't he?
Not in the wider context of things. He was at the top of our pay thing, but it wasn't as much as, within a couple of years, there were players on more money than Gary. And come the end of his contract, we tried. But, the pull of going to Liverpool as one last sort of hurrah for Gary. He was then 32, something like that.
Yes.
That was too much. If Liverpool hadn't have come in, he would have signed again because he enjoyed the place. He was happy at the club. And the key was, from when he first arrived to, during his period, the quality of players around him had improved dramatically. And he played better with better players, as everybody does. And especially a player that's as good as Gary. From when he first came, he struggled because nobody, in a way, sort of understood how he played. But, he was getting 14, 15 goals a season as well then. And it was really losing, the best part of 30 goals with Dion and Gary McAllister. That was that killer, really. It's very hard. Lose 14, 15 goals a season from midfield player. Very difficult to replicate.
Well, in that last season, he scored more goals than Robbie Keane. People forget that. He got I think 15
Robbie
goals.
got 13 and Dion and Gary got 14 or 15, didn't he?
Yeah.
So
that losing. Well, should we talk about Robbie Keane, because that must be an interesting story?
Yeah. Well, we just sold Huckabee.
Well, it was the summer after Dion had gone in the previous.
Was it Dion? But Huckabee
went almost simultaneously with Keane arriving, didn't he?
Yes, I'm saying we sold Huckabee. And so, we were desperately short up front. And I remember, the story has been documented. I think that, I thought, oh, bugger this, we've got to do something. And Gordon was in bed with the flu, and it was a Tuesday or something. And there'd been a lot in the papers about Alex Ferguson saying he liked Keane, but he wasn't worth 6 million, which was the figure that Wolves, or John Richards at Wolves, had put on Robbie. And Robbie at the time was 19.
Yeah.
And the situation was bad enough. And I rang John Richards in the morning and I said, "Are you in, John, today?" And he said, "Yes, what can I do for you?" And I said, "I want to talk to you about Robbie Keane." And so he said, "Fine, come on over." So I went over, saw John Richards, had a nice chat to him, who was a very nice guy. And I sort of won't beat about the bush. "You want 6 million for him?" And he said, "Yes, we do." And I said, "Fine, we'll pay it." I said, "I'm not going to mess around, trying to haggle or anything. Oh, we think he's worth it. We'll take the chance." So he said, "Fine, okay." And we worked out how to pay it. And I think we paid 2 million a year for 3 years or something, 222. And so that was fine because we'd sold Huckabee and we'd got 4.5 million and $1 million if an additional $1 million if he played in the Champions League, which he did for Leeds when we sold it to Leeds. So we've got 5.5 million coming in, so it was near as, damn it, a balance. So it wasn't so critical. And Robbie's agent was Tony Stevens. And my only worry was Villa again, because Tony Stevens was a great relationship, and I think he was a Villa fan as well. And he was Robbie's agent. Anyway, it got done and it went through, and that was fine. The funny bit was, I don't know, a few months later, I go to Wolves for a game, and I'm driving into the car park, stationary, and there's a tap on the window, and there's this man looking at me, and he said, "You keep your thumb on him." And I said, "I'm sorry." And he said, "Keep your thumb on him." And it was Robbie's father. And he said, "Keep your thumb on him." And he said, "Keep your thumb on him." So that was it. Because he said, "He's only a boy. Keep a thumb on him."
Yeah.
So that was it.
So did we steal him in the noses of Villa then? Because we're Villa actually after him as well, though. Were Aston Villa after him as well?
Well, the press said they were, and of course, I think Alex Ferguson liked him a lot, but he was trying to drag the price down.
Yeah, sure.
By saying, "Oh, he's not worth that. He's only a kid," and this, that, and the other. And I just thought, look, if we're going to do something, we need to do it. Anyway, having done the deal with John Richards, I'm driving home, and Strack's in bed with the flu or whatever. And I said, "We've just bought Robbie Keane." And he said, "Oh, don't wind me up." So he said, "I'm not feeling great." And I said, "No, seriously, all being well, it's done. Wolves have agreed and everything." So he said, "God, blimey." And I said, "Well, we've got to do something. We need some goals." And he scored 2 in his first game, didn't he?
Yeah.
He did, yeah.
Against Derby.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Instant hero.
An instant hero. Couldn't have been better. And so we had Robbie for the one season only.
We did.
And I remember I was in this, a group of us had gone to play, and that was the year 2000. Yes,
that's
it
right.
must have been.
Yeah.
Because a group of us went to play. I was a member at Rye Golf Club down in Sussex, and we played Rye, New York in a golf match. And I was in the States playing in the golf match, and I get a phone call from Graham Hover, I think it was, or whatever, to say Inter Milan want to buy Robbie. Oh, crikey, okay. So they gave me the name of the agent. So I rang from the States to Milan and had a discussion, and I think they started at about 9 or 10 million for Robbie. Anyway, we got 13, I think, or 13 and a half even.
Wow.
And I went straight from New York to Milan, and Tony Stevens met us there. Robbie didn't come. And the deal was done. And sadly, we didn't really have the best benefit of him. So,
but it didn't work out for him in Milan, though, did it?
Well, he got over 100 goals for Tottenham, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yes, agreed. But
it didn't work. Oh, I see. I missed you there. It didn't work out at Inter. They changed manager, didn't they?
Right.
He'd only been there for about 6 games or something, and they changed manager, and the new manager didn't like Robbie or the way he played or whatever, or wanted to play a different system or something. So there was no future, especially as a 19-year-old. You want to be playing, don't you?
Yes. Yes.
And from there he went to Leeds.
Leeds, yes, and Tottenham, Liverpool.
Yeah.
Chelsea.
Great career, and he's a smashing lad too.
Is he?
Yeah, really good lad. Yeah. Yeah, top boy. And
sorry, Brian, can I ask you a
then
question
we
about,
had to find a replacement for Robbie.
before we go on to Craig Bellamy, can I just ask about somebody who was classed as maybe a little bit of a bad boy, and Noel Whelan, and
he wasn't a bad boy. He was just a silly boy sometimes. He wasn't bad.
So you as the owner, Brian, did you get to hear about his shenanigans, or are you kept in the dark?
Yeah. You'd be amazed at how many people suddenly ring you and you don't know who they are, but I saw Noel Whelan last night in a nightclub in somewhere, and or whatever. And some of the times it was possibly true. Some of the times it's just somebody being mischievous or whatever. But Noel basically was a good lad and a very good player. I always remember when he was going through one of his bad patches, of naughty patches, if you like. Gordon got him to go and live with him so he could keep an eye on him, and that worked at the time. And he used to ask permission if he could go out in the evening, and Gordon invariably said, "No, you can go out on a Tuesday and a Wednesday if we're not playing, but Thursday, Friday, you're in." That was it. But he was a good lad, and we sold him to Middlesbrough. Yes.
Yeah.
And we sold him for what we paid for him, so that was fine. And he'd done well for us, and was a very good player. He was a very good player, no?
I think he's the first to admit that Coventry City got the best out of him. Gordon Strachan got the best out of him.
Well, there was a good rapport between the two of them anyway. And I think he realised Gordon had his best interests at heart as well. And I think he responded to that. And he was only 21 or 22 or something, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Well, on his day, Noel Whelan and Darren Huckabee were unplayable, and we picked them up on 2 reserve teams, really, and quite young. So the scouting must have been top notch.
Huckabee he was at Newcastle, and Kevin Keegan was manager, and he wasn't in the side, and I'm not even sure if he'd played. He might have played, but he'd been on loan at Millwall and somewhere else.
Lincoln as well, I think.
Where?
Lincoln, I think.
Yes, that sounds right. And we went to watch him play at Old Trafford in a reserve team match. And he was greased lightning. And Gordon said, I think he could do what we want, And so then we got hold of Newcastle, and they said we could have him for a couple of weeks or something, like on trial. And we went to Jersey, and he played for us against Jersey. And I think he got 6 or 7 goals or something in the match. And so we took the chance, and we paid 750 for
Sounds about right.
Huck.
Yeah.
And again, he did us proud. He was a great lad. And guys, you get something like that, and it's very difficult to hold on when basically we were a selling club. If we could, a George Boateng or a Dion Dublin or a Huck, you buy them for relatively low or even extremely low money, and our gate receipts were poor, and season ticket holders, we had 3,500 or 4,000 at, for nothing really. And Sky hadn't really kicked in then with the big money. And so it's very difficult for any of those size clubs at the time to compete. And it was the start of some of the foreign owners coming in, Sky bumping up the money. And, it's very difficult, very difficult. You don't want to lose good players. No club wants to lose a really good player. And Huck loved it at Coventry. He was, absolutely loved it. He was always came back for players' evenings, and he always used to come down and watch games if they weren't playing, because he loved everybody. It was home to him. And so he didn't really want to go to Leeds, but it was needs must, I suppose. But it was a really, really good. Tried every week and so on, and he was good.
I think if you look at the Coventry City's transfers, let's say pre-Ron and post-Ron, we were shopping in a different, to use the old John Sillett phrase, we were shopping at Harrods as opposed to Woolworths, weren't we?
Well,
instead of buying,
we were always looking for, if you like, a Huckabee, or a George Boateng, 200 grand, for those are the ones you dream about. But equally, we suddenly started to think that maybe we can go Gary McAllister, Noel Whelan, Dion was pre-Ron and so on. But there were a number
Nielsen.
And of course there were the Moose Haji and Chippo and so on. And Haji was after the World Cup, was in the World Cup 11, and Chippo was, he was in Porto, I think. Yes.
Yeah.
And Haji was at Deportivo La Coruña.
That's right.
Yeah. And they were different ends of the scale, if you like. One was a World Cup superstar, and the other was a really good player, but in the middle bracket, if you like. And it was our fitness coach at the time had worked in Portugal. And he was the one who knew Josip Chippo. And he said, I think he would be great in our league here. And I think we paid 500,000 or 600,000 for him, which was great. And there's an interesting thing. He was still there when I left. And the last season there, he went off the boil. And what had happened was his agent, who was the son of a very, very, very famous English Premier League manager, was his agent. And he kept winding him up that Newcastle, with Bobby Robson, were really keen to buy him and so on, and they wound him up. Anyway, Gordon and I had the agent in the office and he said, I want a new contract for Josip, but actually I don't really. I want him to go to Newcastle. So Gordon said, fine, I'll tell you what, I'll ring Bobby up now while the agent was in the room. So Gordon rings Bobby Robson, who was the loveliest man, and he said, "Bob," he said, "I've got I won't say his name because it's too well known in the office, who says you want to buy Yusuf Chippo." And Bob said, "What? No," he said, "I think he's a hell of a good player, but he said, I certainly don't want to buy him." And he said, "No." And Gordon held the phone out so that the agent could hear. And so he said, "Why don't you leave the room in the nicest possible way?" But it had unsettled Yusuf badly. And then the agent tried again, then not to Newcastle, but tried to hawk him around. And that was a bad thing. But he was a really, really good player. And so was Moose.
So how did we get Haji then?
I honestly can't remember how. I just remember going to Coruña and a couple of days, and we haggled and haggled and haggled, and we got him, I think, for 3.5 or 4, something like that. But he was a really good person to have around. Tried like hell every match. And I remember Gordon telling me once that there was one game where he really shouldn't have played because he'd got a really nasty bruise on the top of his foot. And he'd got a lump of steak and I put that on the top of it. And Gordon said, "What are you doing with that?" He said, "No, I'm going to put it on the top of my foot, then my sock and a boot and so on." And he said, "And I'll play." Not many do that. But he was a good man.
Was it a fillet steak or sirloin? What sort of steak was it? Fillet, sirloin, rump?
It was just to protect it, I think, not to take the bruise out or whatever. But maybe it did both. Who knows? Maybe it did both. I don't know. So there we are. There we are.
So obviously that summer when we lost Robbie and we lost Gary McAllister, and obviously we signed Craig Bellamy amongst other players. What's your feeling about Bellamy?
We got Craig. He'd been injured the previous season, a lot of it. And we got him actually a year too early. And by that I mean he needed another year to really get up to speed and fit again. He was only a young lad, but we bought him from Norwich, and it was actually we had a scout. Who's just won the Traitors program? What's his name?
Alan Carr.
I don't watch it.
Alan Carr.
Alan Carr's father.
Oh, Graham Carr, yes.
Graham was a scout for us. And he was the one who said, "You have got to take Craig. He is going to be a top player. You can get him now because he's been injured and this, that, and the other. And he will be a good replacement for Robbie." And it was Graham's push to, he's the replacement that we would need for Robbie. And we bought him. And
it's fair to say
he didn't have an agent. He sat down with us in Norwich, and I said to him, I said, I'll tell you what I've done. I brought with me Robbie Keane's contract. We'll pay you the same as we paid Robbie Keane. And he said, good enough for me. That was it. And through the door, whilst we were just finishing, comes Fashanu, who was, where he came from, I don't know, but he'd heard we were in the middle of doing a deal. And he said, you can't sign that. I'm Craig's agent. And we said, you're not his agent. Craig, is he your agent? No, he's not my agent. He said, well, I can stop the transfer. Oh, because I know that, funny enough, it was Newcastle again. I know Bobby Robson at Newcastle wants Craig, and I can stop the transfer to Coventry. But if you give me 100 grand, I'll give it the nod. So we said, you know what you can do, don't you? That was it. And Craig signed for us anyway. But, you know, it was strange. He just walked through the door while we were in the hotel sorting out the deal.
Wow.
But then he did join Newcastle straight from us, though, didn't he?
Yes, he did. But I'm not sure Bobby was there then, was he? No. But he did go, and he went there for a good deal. We all ended up okay. But that was after we'd gone down. Yes?
Yes.
Do you think we got the recruitment wrong, Brian, for the last 18 months before we went down? Because what do you see as the reasons why we did get relegated?
Yeah. Didn't get enough goals. When we lost Robbie and McAllister, we lost 30 goals. And 30 goals is a lot of goals. We also had some bad injuries that season. Who was the winger we had?
Steve Froggatt.
Who had a bad tackle with Summerby's son.
Yeah, Nicky Summerby,
and that finished him for the season. And, you know, it was a struggle, to be honest. And over the course of a couple of years, we lost a lot of goals. And goals are if you don't score goals, you don't win matches. Yeah. And that was the crucial thing. But you could say we were always restricted because one, we had to probably overpay in some cases to get players to come because we were always struggling, if you like. Great spirit and you know, some really good players. The spirit in the team was always good. You know, there was people like Roland Nielsen, who was great, Oggy, and then Magnus Hedman, and you know, there were a few others there that were all good players, but goals was the killer.
Could we have got John Hartson in sooner? Was there a delay?
Well, we tried sooner, but I mean, John only played 7 games for us.
12.
12, was it? As many as that? Okay.
Yeah.
But he did well, and I think you're right. If we had got John earlier, but it's not to say we hadn't tried to get him considerably earlier, but Wimbledon were, you know, haggling and this, that, and the other. But we ended up getting him in a very, it was to be a good deal financially, because we paid about 800 for him, and we sold him to Celtic for 7.
Yeah. Astonishing.
I mean, 7 million. And I went to see Dermot Desmond, and we were on tour in Ireland pre-season for the following season. And Dermot had a house in London, and he was having it decorated, and the decorator was a Coventry fan. And he overheard the conversation between Martin O'Neill and Dermot Desmond. And I got the gist of that conversation from the decorator. And Dermot started off at about 4 or something like that. And I knew that they had got a figure in their mind. And he kept saying to me, "How much did you buy him for?" And I said, "It's none of your business how much we paid for him. It's a lot of my business how much we sell him for." And so it went on. In the end,
didn't we have
we paid 10. He also had 10 grand a game to us on top for because he had knee problems.
Yes.
And failed the medicals. That was the reason we hammered Newcastle, Wimbledon, because he wouldn't pass the vet. And so it went on. Anyway, Celtic was a good deal for us. And John, again, had already been tapped up, if you like, whatever you like. And he was going, and he was too good really for the championship. He needed to play big match.
So we're relegated from the Premiership, and we lose Hartson. We lose somebody else, Claudio. Oh, we lost Haji, of course.
Yeah,
we lost Haji.
Yep.
He went to Villa, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, what was your
somebody
thinking?
Somebody else went as well. Craig Bellamy.
Craig Bellamy, yeah. So, what was your thinking? Having been relegated, to get back quickly.
Well, the view was that we still had, if we could get goals, and that was why we bought from West Brom
Lee Hughes.
And because he had a super goal scoring record. And I think you mentioned last couple of weeks ago that did we try and get Bully at the time, or was that
I think Bully was earlier when we were in the Prem.
Was it? Okay, but certainly Lee Hughes was somebody that, and he started off all right too, didn't he?
Yeah.
And again, and we had the boy from Belgium,
Delorge.
Sorry?
Delorge.
Delorge, who broke his leg the first game he played for us.
Yeah. We also signed Julian Joachim and Keith O'Neill, didn't we?
Yes. I think it was a lot of it was shock as much. I honestly don't think we should have gone down in spite of losing the players, that Robbie and McAllister. I think we still had enough to survive in the Premier League. And I don't honestly think, the more I think about it, and it's a long time ago now, but the more I think about it, and at the time, was I don't think we should have gone down. I think there were certainly 2, 3, 4 sides that were worse than us that managed to stay up, and that is a different thing. But the view was to try and get straight back up, and then I remember that we lost at Grimsby, or at home to Grimsby.
Home to Grimsby, yeah.
And that was the killer punch, if you like. And Gordon and I were good enough and close enough to say to each other in a way. Gordon said, I think, my time is up. And I said, I think it probably is, much against my better judgment and my wishes. Because I still think that he was the right one to, you can lose 2 or 3 matches in the championship of all leagues.
Yeah.
Anybody can beat anybody in that league. And so it's proved year after year. But, at Christmas that time, I think we were top or second.
We were well up there, yes.
No, I think we were, because Roland Nielsen won Manager of the Month.
He did, yes. Roland had a great start, didn't he? He was unbeaten for about 10 or 12 games, I think.
Yes, well, that's when he won Manager of the Month, and I think we were in the top 3 at Christmas.
Yeah.
And Richard Money was with Roland.
Yeah.
I think we lost 8 of our last 10, didn't we, Jim, or something like that?
We had a
Sorry?
We had a slump.
The last 10 games.
We were in the playoff places.
I can't hear you very well, Claudio. I don't know. It's very muffled.
Oh, I said we lost, I think, 8 of our last 10 matches. I think that's what the issue
of that season.
Yeah. We tailed off.
No, well, you can't blame me for
Brian,
those.
Yeah, Brian, I know you. You were a big Roland fan and a Richard Money fan, I think, as well.
Yes.
But what happened why did Jim Smith come in?
I don't know.
Was that under your? No, he was after you left, was it?
No, I think Jim arrived when I was. Was I still there or not? I'm not sure. But the whole business of Roland and Richard Money. Richard was a very good coach.
Yeah.
And Roland was a good leader, and the players respected him, and so on. But Richard Money was sacked because he had a club phone, and somebody saw in the boardroom or wherever that my number kept coming up on his phone bill.
Oh.
And the same in as much with Roland, because they kept in touch even though I wasn't there. And that was exactly the reason. And Richard said, what way is that to run a football club?
Yeah. Yeah. He those two, I felt that autumn, after Gordon went, they really got the team playing.
Yes.
Some great results. And I just felt when Jim Smith came in, I couldn't understand that move at all. And we fell apart.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, Jim by then was a very senior citizen of the football world, but we didn't need a Jim Smith. We'd got Roland, who'd played 120 times for Sweden, was a highly intelligent footballer and man, and Richard Money was there. The only thing possibly wrong was Richard felt he should have been the manager, and Roland should have been, but they were fine. It was just Richard was ambitious and wanted to be a manager. But the two of them were, absolutely ideal. They worked together. The players liked them. I still think we'd have gone, if they'd kept them, I think there was a good chance of going straight back up.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey ho.
Hey ho.
I suppose I've got a question then for you, Brian, before we wrap things up. Thank you for coming back on again.
No,
so
pleasure.
if you could have your time all over again and turn the clock back to when you decided to buy all those shares, knowing what you know now, would you still do it?
Oh, of course I'd still do it. I loved every minute of it. And I have extremely fond memories of the whole Coventry experience. You're going to get bad times. That's part of the thing. But you also know you'll get good times. And hopefully the good times just about outweigh the bad times. If I had my time again, I'd have not trusted 2 or 3 people that I mistakenly trusted. And that was the worst thing that happens to anybody, I think, is that if you trust somebody and they break your trust for selfish reasons or whatever, then I think that is a big blow to you. And that's the only thing that I really regret about nearly 11 years at Coventry.
Yeah.
Jim, would you like to say anything else?
Sorry?
Well, I would finish by saying, just following on from what Brian was saying, that January 2002, yeah, when you left, and the team were, I think they were 4th, 5th, or 6th in the table.
The night before I left, we had a board meeting on the day after, and on the Monday night we'd played at Crystal Palace.
Yes, I was there.
And won
3-1. Yeah,
and won 3-1. And the next day was the old, and that was it.
But you could argue that until this season, Coventry City have never been in a stronger position in the league table since that day.
No, absolutely.
Good point, Jim.
23 years it's taken us to get back. Yeah.
Well, I think that they've been on the TV quite a bit this season as well, which is great.
Yeah.
But I think Doug has done a super job. It was quite fun, really, wasn't it? That last Saturday or Sunday, whenever it was, we had past and present, Stoke v Coventry, and
2 managers. Yeah.
And I was disappointed. I was surprised Doug made the change, but everybody has a time and a period, and maybe the club just needed a freshen up anyway. And so, but you can't argue that he had brought the club back from the edge of, a really dangerous position to nearly getting in the Premier League last season. They lose that silly goal to Sunderland, and it could have been the other way around. But it's a big jump from Championship to Premier League.
Yes.
And sometimes you think you're better off being top of the or near the top of the Championship and everybody winning and so on, other than jump into the Premier League and you suddenly think, crikey. The only thing is you get over 100 million of broadcast income, and that's a lot of money. But it isn't a lot of money when footballers now cost.
No.
I mean, even when you think Robbie Keane for 6 million, you can't even buy a
reserve centre half.
No, and a very not even a good one.
That's true. Very true.
So there we are.
Fantastic, Brian. Thank you so much for your...
No, pleasure.
your
and
input.
let's hope that we do go up this year.
Yeah.
That would be
fantastic.
wonderful.
Well, that's all.
Wonderful.
That's all for this episode of the Sky Blues History Podcast. A big thank you yet again to Brian Richardson for joining us. And Jim, another masterclass by yourself. Hopefully you won't replace me. I mean, Brian was on about everyone's got their time.
Yes. Well, I'm not far off 82 now. So there's one quick thing. Somebody, I was a great friend of Peter Parfitt, the cricketer, and a great mate of mine, and we were in business as well at one time together. And Parf's now 88, I think, or 89 even, 88, I think. And if somebody says to him, how are you, Parf? And he always looks up and he says, well, I'm delighted to say, he said, I'm still above the grass. And
that's so
I'll leave you with that thought.
Yeah.
I'm still above the grass. So there you are.
Thank you and good night. Remember to like and subscribe. And I'm sure we'll be back next week, Jim, with another episode.
Okay. Thank you very much, Brian.
Good
night.
night.
Bye. Good night.
Company business. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Thank you.